Hello, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. It's Louisa here, and I have some more thoughts for you in the field of mental health and spirituality. I'm joined today by a beautiful crow being who is just helping me to, I guess, work with the darkness, I want to say, because this topic, I'm going to hopefully call this video Dealing with Your Demons. Is kind of a double entendre play on words because in the West, we often think of our demons as, well, the other analogy is the skeletons in the closet, right? So in the West, when we say you've got to face your demons, we're talking usually about the shadow aspects of self, the negative core beliefs, the difficult, painful things that happened to you in your past, your regrets, your sorrows, all of that stuff will be your demons or your skeletons in the closet. So we're usually talking about a psychological or ego-based expression of pain and darkness. But the word also has the connotation of an entity, an extra dimensional or subtle energy or non-physical being or energy that is operating in some kind of reality that we can't see, and that is perhaps influencing us or even infiltrating us. There's some language around this which is a bit scary, like possession, but I don't personally think we need to use that language because language is important. How it makes you feel about the topic is very important, to find your own language that fits really well, A, with your worldview, but B, also contributes to a healthy relationship with this thing that you are working with. So the word possession implies a lot of helplessness. And, while it might be true on some level, you could argue, I believe always that we actually can activate our own sovereignty around any experience and that we are never, ever powerless. So I'm careful with the language. But I might use the word infiltrate instead, or another word that gets used often is hijack as well, to like an entity hijacking your energy field. Interference is kind of a little bit more neutral, and that might be a better word to use for you. Now, I might be now talking about something that you don't even believe in. I think a lot of my audience are, quite spiritual in nature because a lot of my topics are spiritual in nature. But if I'm starting to zone you out already because I'm talking about interdimensional beings that you don't believe in, then please hang in with me anyway, because it kind of doesn't matter. And this is a critical point to make from the outset. I don't think it matters too much where these things come from, whether they're actually coming up as shadow aspects of self or they are coming from the external entities that are not yours at all. The reason being is that the solution is likely to be the same. And I'll get us to the solution eventually. I'm going to just talk generally a little bit about it first. I also must caveat this by saying I do not consider myself whatsoever to be an expert in entities. I am more of an expert in shadow work and recovering from trauma. So I have a bias in that direction, but I find my trauma methods equally applicable to the world of entities and demons. So I'm going to try and do justice to both worldviews at the same time. A bit of a challenge here, but we'll give it a go. So you could loosely say that there are two types of demons that I'm discussing here, as I've mentioned. And let's just summarize by saying one is an external entity that kind of comes from somewhere else, sometimes off another person that you're interacting with, or via a substance that you're ingesting, or via your energy field being very, very open, like getting extremely drunk, for example, or being under the influence of alcohol or drugs can actually open up your auric field so wide that inadvertently something might kind of get in, right? It's not dissimilar to the physical world where sometimes we get some parasitic bugs that come into our system, whether it's in through our guts or some kind of tick or leech or something that lands on us, that is essentially a parasite. So what it's doing is it's feeding off your energy. And while that sounds really creepy and scary, I give the example of the internal parasite to try to normalize it and confront the fact that in the West, we've demonized demons. We've said that they don't exist. The scientific rational worldview doesn't hold any space for them at all. So I think we're doing ourselves a disservice there because many of us are kind of unprepared for what to do if we have some kind of parasitic, non-physical energy in our systems, right? So that's one type of demon, let's call it. But there's also what I would call loosely a negative thought form or an inner demon, something that comes from within us. So negative thought form means a thought has taken hold in your mind that is really negative, is probably linked to old core wounds from childhood or many, many years ago, or something that's been like repetitively played out in your life. And it might not even be something from this life. If you'll kind of hang with me here, it could even be from a past life. It could be collective ancestral trauma as well that you're tuning into, or a collective deep fear, right? Because when you go down into the bottom of the human psyche, you find archetypal fears down there, just as you find archetypal blessings and benevolent beings, like angels and beautiful mother archetypes and things like that. You also find negative archetypes, tricksters and demons, and many, many names for these things. Phobias as well come from that kind of collective subconscious. So phobias of snakes, reptiles, spiders, that kind of thing, parasites again. So your negative thought form, while it has originated from within you in your own mind, it is possibly a product of just simply the collective human unconscious, which we all share. It's in our DNA. It's deep, deep, deep in our kind of cells and in our core inner being. They're kind of sits in our subconscious, these fears. They are very well personified by an ancient mythical creature called a Kraken, which is a giant octopus creature which lives in a lake, in a dark lake, and will kind of emerge, if disturbed, sort of once every 100 years and gobble up the village children, that kind of thing. So I think the octopus itself is a really fascinating metaphor for this demonic energy that we're talking about, because octopuses, or octopi, I should say, are very strange and alien creatures to a human, and can evoke, tremendous fear in us because we just don't know. I watch my cat sometimes. She's walking around the house and suddenly she'll see something unfamiliar. And the way she approaches it is like with such caution, and her eyes are wide. And, and it might just be a cardboard box. It's quite funny to watch because, well, I know what it is. But, the unfamiliar, the unknown, again, it's hardwired in in our bodies. So something like an octopus, which is so alien to being a human, it's so different to us, can be a good metaphor. And I'll stick with it as well because I actually had a recent experience where a negative thought form really took hold in my own mind around an issue, and I started to spiral into a lot of paranoia and visualizing really extreme fears of what might play out with a particular choice I had to make in life. I don't really want to go into the details, but suffice to say, I was about to go on a traveling trip, and I was besieged by fears over this trip. And the thought just got bigger and bigger over a few days. It turned into this visceral fear that I could feel in my body. And then that night, I had a dream about an octopus. And it's not a creature I'm usually, I haven't got an affinity to octopuses normally. So it was a very odd symbol that popped up in my dream. And in the dream, I was trying to get rid of this octopus. It was like this scary, yucky thing. And I tried to throw it over the fence and kill it. And then in the dream, there were some neighbors there, and they came to rescue the octopus. And they were upset with me because I was hurting this poor little creature that they thought was really sweet. So I woke up the next morning thinking, what a strange dream. It's like my subconscious is telling me that I have this fear because in the dream I was very frightened of the octopus. But the neighbors are telling me that the octopus is harmless and sweet, and they're mad at me for trying to kill it. So I could see in the dream, right, my ambivalence. And I realized that maybe the octopus isn't so scary after all. Maybe this fear, the octopus being the symbol for my fear, is not so scary. So what I then did is I'd been very much guided to watch Octopus, My Teacher, which is a fabulous, fabulous documentary, if you can watch it, about a man who bonds beautifully with a wild octopus in the oceans of South Africa. And that story melted away my fears, and I realized that I actually, just like the man in the documentary, I needed to embrace the octopus, right? I needed to just be with my fear and learn to love it and not do anything particularly, right? This is the power of the heart energy. It's just being with, it's allowing, it's making space for. And from that place of deep acceptance and trust within myself, I noticed that this octopus or this negative thought form, this paranoid fear that I'd been experiencing, just melted away. Right, just melted away. So I tell that rather long-winded story because it illustrates the power of love in overcoming any kind of demonic energy, whether you think it's a negative thought form that's arisen from yourself, it's come up as some kind of a scary thought that just starts to take hold and gets its own power, and that's your inner demon, or you believe it is an external demon that has come from somewhere else, hijacked, interfered, possessed, if you want to use that language. Yeah, and you're never ever helpless, right? This is it's it's a difficult thing, I understand, to take back your power and realize, because of the language, right? Because we're not, well, first of all, we're not taught about these things. In the West, we have no kind of roadmap on what to do. And often we'll just dismiss it as we're going crazy, or, what am I thinking? This is ridiculous. We may even get told that we are crazy, that we have a mental illness, that we have schizophrenia or whatever, because sometimes the demonic stuff can come up as voices. And I do talk about this a lot as well. I made another video, Hearing Voices, a Deeper Understanding, which I recommend you go and have a look at, because in that I describe the voices from self and voices from others and how they can be different things, right? But again, just like this topic, the solution boils down to the same thing. And that is, rather than being afraid of this demon, rather than running away from it, resisting it, trying to get rid of it in any way, shape we can, what we want to do is actually be with that energy, notice it, observe it, allow it even. And doing so, though, from a space of love and compassion. You might start out with curiosity first. It's like, oh, I'm gonna actually look at this monstrous, scary thing in front of me and notice it, and just be curious about it, just observe it. And as you relax, what will happen is that energy will match your frequency, because ultimately our frequency is our superpower, right? How we feel about something, it changes how we perceive it in the quantum field, and therefore how our reality plays out. So our power really lies in our ability to respond from a loving place. And we can do that with anything. We can, it doesn't even have to be, I'm talking here about so-called demons, which are non-physical, but it works equally as well with physical people. When the person shows up in front of you that is acting crazy, is really angry, is really mad, is sort of an enemy energy, we can meet that with love and watch that person transform, watch this reality transform in front of us. So I don't like to get too hung up on what it is exactly. And besides, as I said, I'm not an expert in this field of entity attachments. I know enough about it for my practice, and I need to, because working with people who hear voices, many of those people believe that they are being besieged by entities. So it's not something that I ignore at all. But I like to bring the person back to their own sovereignty over the issue, because we may never know. There are practitioners out there that can see these things, that can extract these things, and that's great. And I've had it done myself. And if you feel like that's what you need, then I urge you to go and do it, because I feel like we all know ultimately what we need to do. But it's also not something that you have to give your power away to another person to do for you, because if you're adept enough at working with your shadow, working with unwanted feelings within yourself, working with unwanted, unprocessed memories or aspects of yourself that you don't like, anything in the shadows, those things we don't like. If you could do that, then you can do that with anything. You can hold space and accept and love your own stuff, energetic bad things, bad people, stuff that's going on in the external world. It doesn't matter. It all just becomes energy, which is the point of what I'm trying to say here, is that when you work on the energy level, then the stories attached to what exactly these things are don't matter so much. Things present in different dimensions differently. So things can present on an energetic level as a vision. You might see an octopus. There's a fabulous story. Jules Evans writes a lot about psychedelic integration, and I might actually share just a little bit of this with you to really illustrate this point. And it's a beautiful story about, he writes about a lady called Chloe who cured her lifelong PTSD using microdosing of LSD coupled with internal family systems therapy. Now, internal family systems therapy is very similar to what I do. It's working with exiled parts of self and learning to love and integrate one's inner children. So Chloe basically sat down and over a period of, I think, a few months, did microdosing of LSD and worked on loving her inner children. And she found that she cured herself of the PTSD from that process. It was a very powerful process for her, and she reported feeling like really blissed out, really happy, really balanced, and things were going great. So that's an example of Chloe working with her inner demons, right? Or her shadow self. But then Chloe went and did a rather large dose of mushrooms. This was apparently about 6 months after her healing. And this experience didn't go so well for Chloe. She was exposed to what she described as a kind of a purple blobby type of energy, which was a parasite, which had all these tentacles. Sounds a lot like my octopus, right? And she said it was extremely frightening and disturbing, and she felt that it had got itself into her because of this psychedelic experience she had, and she couldn't get rid of it. And so she experienced weeks and I think even months of trying to kind of get rid of it in a state of confusion and paranoia about it. But eventually she was led through her spiritual circles to remembering the techniques she had used for her own inner children. And the techniques are to understand that you are everything, right? So you are these inner children, you are these shadows, emotions, you are these negative core beliefs, and you are the octopus or the negative energy. That's how she was perceiving it. I am the darkness, she said. I am that which I am witnessing. And that's the ultimate place of non-duality, where the game of evil and good collapses. Because if you can become that which you see, and you can do that from a place of love, then all dissolves into that loving frequency that you're holding, because love is the power of the universe. Love is the highest frequency, or love, light, light, love, right? There's sort of variations on that word. And that frequency is like light. Imagine bright, bright light shining into the shadows. And when it shines into the shadows disappear. So those octopuses and those demons and those negative core beliefs, they are but shadows. That's all they are. And while they are powerful on a third dimensional level, and yes, they can kind of hook into us and cause us a lot of distress, just like a parasite can get into your guts and make trouble, right, for your digestive system, you can clean it out consciously with your own work, your own power. And what's going to work for one person isn't always going to work for everybody. Chloe's method of saying I am the darkness and embracing I keep calling it the octopus, but it's because she's described her negative entity as having tentacles. Let's just call it her octopus. She embraced her octopus with love, and it dissolved. So, you know, that I think is a fantastic method, and it personally has worked for me. But I've also had experiences where I felt attacked by other energies, and I've been able to just use mantras like I am the light, I am the truth, I am the love, I am, right? So I'm claiming my sovereignty there, and I'm not necessarily kind of imagining that I'm loving this energy that's trying to attack me, but I am in a state of love, right? So it does boil down to love. Whether you're lovingly embracing that which you're perceiving, or you're just coming into a frequency of love in your own heart, I think either method would suffice, you know. And then around that, there's a whole bunch of like details that fill in the blank, you know, different mantras and use of crystals and candles and white light and things that, you know, we each find to be powerful because of our own cultural upbringing, because it worked for us one time, because a friend showed it to us and we like that technique. There are many, many, many ways to do this. But as I said, it boils down to love. So I think if I had to summarize how to deal with your demons, it's going to come down to love and being able to access the frequency of love within yourself. Now, if that feels like impossible for you where you are right now, I always like to remind people that love is on a spectrum, and love, you know, with extreme unconditional beautiful love on one end, and on the other end you've got good old acceptance, right? Acceptance is the beginning of love. So if you can at least accept that which you're perceiving, and when you do that, you drop the resistance, you're on the pathway to love. And on the pathway to love, you will encounter other words which can help you, other frequencies, because these words are just labels for frequencies. Words like compassion. Can I have compassion? If I can't have compassion for the demon or the octopus, can I have compassion for myself? That's going to help, right? Gratitude is another one. Can I be grateful for this experience? Is there something that I can learn from this? Forgiveness. Yeah. So these are some of the frequencies that you can start to tap into, tune into. And while you're cleaning up this energy, let's say transmuting it into love, I hope it goes without saying that you've got to care for yourself at the same time. You've got to be resting, not consuming negative media or reading books or talking to people that are negative. You've got to be really careful the stimulus that's coming in. You know, you want to be taking care of yourself, your radical self-care practices, so that you can come into alignment. And for me, that will look like, you know, my morning meditation routines and using smudge stick and being in nature and prayer, all of those things. So working with love and also taking care of your own energy field, being very, very vigilant about your energetic hygiene. And that is, you know, the responsibility of each of us. So the third thing you can do, if neither of those things work, then I do recommend going to see somebody that can literally, well, let's go back to, do you believe this demon is an inner demon or an external demon coming from somewhere else? And if it's an inner demon, then, you know, therapy, counseling, very, very helpful, because that person will hopefully not be in a fear frequency, will be exhibiting a loving frequency, or at least an accepting frequency. And that's going to help you as well to start to integrate and work with this energy. Or you could also go and see somebody who literally can extract and remove negative entities from fields. And I've done a little bit of that work myself from time to time. I've had some help. It was extremely useful. I can do it for myself now, but there was a time when I really, really couldn't, and I did need some help. So, you know, if people need a recommendation, you can always private message me and I will flick some names forward. I think you need to be quite careful of who you choose for that work because, yeah, there's just like counselors, there's a lot of people out there of varying capacities, and I know I wouldn't trust just anyone with that kind of work. So just do your due diligence, do your research, find somebody that you feel you can really trust, and yeah, it certainly is one way to help you if you're struggling with this issue. So I hope I've done this justice. Like a lot of my videos, I feel like I'm kind of like I need to write a novel about this topic, and only that would do it justice. But you know, we have a short YouTube video, so hopefully it's been a little bit inspiring, and yeah, you can take away something useful from it and just disregard whatever doesn't work for you. Okay, thank you for sticking with me this far, if you've come this far, and I will be back soon, I'm sure, with another video. Take care, namaste.